Minato is a loser who can't achieve anything in life. However, his life takes a turn when he meets 4 warrior girls who want to use him as their personal cucumber to become stronger. In this world, overpowered alien girls called Sikureis compete with each other to find the best Ashikabi, a man to suck power from by developing plot. At the university, Minato is having the worst week of his life as he's just failed his college entrance exam for the 2nd time. Later, as he walks home from the train station, a bouncy Sekirei named Musubi crashes onto him from above, landing both of them in an awkward position. Just then, someone tries to attack them with a blast, so Musubi shoves Minato out of the way, and he gets to feel her massive plots. Instead of fighting back, she simply grabs Minato and bolts away from there. The next day, he wakes up in his cramped apartment, only to find Musubi still there, casually wearing his oversized clothes. She then starts changing right in front of him, and a flustered Minato rushes outside to wait. Minato remembers how Musubi had dragged him to safety. She apologizes for dragging him into the situation, but says she brought him along for an important reason. Just then, Musubi faints on the spot, so Minato quickly takes her inside and gives her some food. As she devours a burger, he looks at her unusual clothes and wonders what's going on with all the jumping and explosions. As Minato is deep in thought, Musubi tells him that she doesn't have a place to stay and asks if she can stay the night. Minato agrees, and just then Musubi approaches and asks him to become her Ashikabi, grabbing his hand and placing it on her bazumgas. Back in the present, Musubi, now dressed, tells Minato that she's really hungry, and he decides to take her out to eat. Musubi says she'll cook dinner that night, and Minato agrees to let her do so. He suggests she buy some groceries while he heads to the bank. While walking alone, Minato thinks about how he wants to ask her to leave, but doesn't know how. Just then, he runs into the same Thunder twins from before. They demand to know where the Sekirei is and tell him to hand her over. Right at this moment, Musubi runs up to him, saying she forgot to ask what he wants to eat. Minato takes this chance to yell at her to run away. Unfortunately, the twins spot Musubi and attack with lightning, but Musubi manages to dodge. They prepare to attack again, but Minato jumps in to protect Musubi. The attackers laugh and ask why he's protecting her, wondering if he is his Ashikabi. Musubi starts feeling strange and her condition worsens. Minato sees this, grabs her, and runs, ending up in a dead-end alley. An intimate moment begins to build up between them, but they're interrupted when the 2 girls catch up. They taunt them for being so openly corny and point out that there's no escape. As the danger grows closer, Musubi tries to kiss Minato. The attackers try to stop her, but they're too late as the 2 make contact, and a surge of power flows through Musubi. The twins then admit they waited too long and didn't expect her to make contact in a place like that. Now that Musubi has fully emerged, they say there's nothing they can do. Musubi, now powerful, confronts them and demands that they let Minato go. They refuse and ask what she's going to do about it. A fierce battle breaks out, and eventually the attackers retreat in frustration, saying they lost their job and now have to find another Sekirei. As they're leaving, a voice calls out that there's no point in fighting without a master. The attackers recognize the voice as Homura, and ask if he has been peeping at them like an old man who can't get his small brother to stand up in bed. Homura says they only go after Sekirei who haven't emerged yet, and questions whether they really thought they'd win like that. The attackers tell him to shut up and ask if he wants to fight. Homura shows a bit of his power, scaring them, and says that Musubi has already found her master, and that he's not interested in fighting the fully emerged Sekirei. He walks away, and the twins grumble that they don't get what's up with him. On the other hand, Minato finally asks Musubi a question that he should have asked hours ago. Who are the 2 girls attacking them? Musubi explains that they are Sekirei. Back at Minato's place, he's talking to his sister Yukari on the phone, who teases him for failing the exam again. He tells her not to yell and asks if she can send some clothes. Yukari jokes and asks if he's going to wear girls' clothes now, but agrees to send some simple ones. Later that afternoon, Minato hears a voice from the TV. Rather strangely, a man appears on the screen and congratulates him for being chosen as a Sekirei's partner. Musubi, who also notices the screen, calls the man her professor. Minato asks if she knows him, and Musubi explains that he's not just her professor, but also the president of the MBI company which she's related to. The professor then starts explaining everything about the Sekirei to Minato, though the details are not revealed yet. He ends with a warning that if Minato tells anyone, they'll torture him for life. Before Minato can ask what kind of morbid introduction this is, the man vanishes from the screen. Right afterwards, someone knocks on the door. Minato, panicking, opens it and finds one of the professor's men, who silently hands him a box and leaves. Minato opens it and finds clothes for Musubi. Moments later, as she changes again in front of him, Minato says he'll step outside. Musubi, however, confidently tells him that she'll fight for him from now on. That evening, the landlord comes back and realizes a girl is staying there with his tenant. This sends the old man fuming, and he immediately kicks Minato out of the apartment. Following this, Minato and Musubi search for a new place, but can't find one. As night falls and they sit in a park, Minato asks her why she chose him as her Ashikabi, since he's not even that special. Musubi replies with a simple answer, that she likes him. Minato felt unworthy of being Musubi's partner as he neither has a lot of money, nor he's particularly strong. But Musubi responded calmly, saying that she isn't a gold digger type who seeks material things. She then suddenly plants a kiss on Minato's lips, and this is enough to activate her wings. A sudden surge of incredible power flows through her, and Musubi begins to recite her secret prayer. In an instant, she creates a tornado that lifts them above the clouds, and they begin to soar. While this is going on somewhere in a forest, a girl cries and begs for help. On the other hand, Musubi and Minato's flight doesn't last that long as they end up crashing into someone's house. However, both of them are alive, and Musubi admits she doesn't exactly know how to land properly. Just then, the landlady Maya shows up looking confused and says she doesn't recognize them. Minato quickly apologizes, but the lady notices that he's badly hurt. Another man also appears shortly afterwards and questions who they are and what they're doing here. Inside the house, the man asks Minato how they ended up in this situation. Remembering the professor's warning to keep the Sekirei matter secret, Minato makes up a stupid excuse, claiming that a gust of wind brought them there. The man seems to accept that explanation and drops the topic. A few moments later, Musubi walks in, now dressed in a kimono, and asks how she looks. Minato watches her in awe and says it's like seeing two flowers blooming. Minato then gets up and apologizes to the landlady for borrowing the clothes. She tells him not to worry, explaining that she enjoys helping people and that the tracksuit he's wearing used to belong to her husband. Minato looks over at the man, who quickly insists that it's not his tracksuit, and explains that Maya's husband passed away a long time ago. Minato apologizes again, and Mia assures him it's fine, as it has been years since her husband's death. She introduces herself, and in return, Minato and Musubi introduce themselves too, and the man tells the newcomers that his name is Kagari. Musubi, catching a delicious smell, reacts like a child who has seen its mother. Mia tells them that dinner is almost ready and invites them to eat. Minato tries to decline, saying they've already troubled her enough, but Musubi's stomach growls loudly. Mia thus insists they join her for dinner, and eventually Minato gives in. Midway through, another girl named Uzume shows up, half-dressed, complaining that she's hungry. Mia scolds her for walking around like she makes her living on the streets, but Uzume defends herself, saying she is at least wearing pants. Later, Minato pulls Mia aside and admits that the group doesn't seem like a family. Mia explains that everyone except her are all tenants. She rents out rooms in her house. Desperate for a place to stay, Minato pleads with her to let them live there. He tells her that his old landlord kicked them out and they have nowhere else to go. Mia reassures him that he's welcome, saying her husband built the house to provide shelter to people. Kagari, listening nearby, warns Mia that this can turn out to be a plot of a horror movie. But Mia responds that maybe their arrival is fate. Kagari sighs and says there's nothing more to say if Mia has already made up her mind. Outside, Kagari receives a call from someone named Takami. After hearing the situation, Kagari agrees to keep an eye out, sensing it could be a serious problem. Back inside, Minato calls his mom and tells her that he's changing houses. She questions why he's moving so suddenly, and he replies that the rent is high. She says she'll only cover half his expenses until he passes the entrance exam, and reminds him to live like a man and shoulder some responsibilities for once. Elsewhere, a mysterious girl is confronted by a man at night. He tells her it's dangerous for someone like her to be out this late, and says he wants to add her to his collection. Meanwhile, Yukari, Minato's sister, arrives with the clothes he had asked for. Surprised to see her, Minato asks why she came in person instead of just sending them. Yukari reminds her brother of his low IQ by revealing that she got accepted to a college in the city. When Minato asks when this happened, she admits she didn't tell him because she felt awkward since he failed the exam twice. She also mentions that their mom is coming to the city for work. Later, they arrive at their new place. Mason Izumo and Miya tells them that room number 202 is now theirs. Miya then tells Musubi that dinner will be ready soon and she should take a bath. In the bathroom, Uzume walks in and realizes Musubi is the new tenant. Meanwhile, Minato sits on the porch, thinking if they survived such a high fall thanks to Musubi's inbuilt cushions. He notices a tree and assumes it helped break their fall. But when he touches it, he sees a girl inside, and it's the same girl from who was crying for help earlier. Back in the bath, Musubi and Uzume chat and bond with each other. Uzume notices Musubi's Sekirei crest and says she's a Sekirei too. Musubi introduces herself as Sekirei number 88 and says it's her first fight, even though she has no experience. Uzume, on the other hand, says she doesn't feel like fighting. Outside, Minato pulls his hand away from the tree, confused by what he saw. He also remembers seeing that girl when they were falling. Shortly afterwards, Uzume approaches him and says she knows he's Musubi's master and asks him to tell her that she's not in the mood for a fight. Then, all of a sudden, she hugs Minato, which makes Musubi jealous, and she warns Uzume to stay away from her dear senpai. Just as she's about to attack, Miya appears, hits her on the head, and scolds her for being improper. Miya doesn't ask why they were fighting, but makes it clear that violence is not allowed in the house. Once she walks away, Uzume comments that Miya is scary when she's angry. That night, Homura appears behind a new Sekirei who had been overlooking the city on her own. She tells him that it's his unlucky day since they've met, and challenges him. Homura, however, says he doesn't have time and quickly attacks before vanishing from the spot. As he walks away, he tells her to stop messing around and find herself a master. The girl yells after him, saying, Ashikabi are just tools, and she'd rather eliminate one than be bonded to one. Back at the boarding house, Minato returns to the tree and sees the girl still sitting in it. He tells her to jump and promises that he'll catch her. She does so, and for the first time in his life, he keeps a promise and catches her. He asks for her name, and she says it's Kusano. When he asks why she was crying, Kusano blames herself and says she wanted to go outside. She then begins pleading for his help, but before Minato can do anything, she disappears. However, this all turns out to be a dream, as Musubi soon wakes up in his room. Homura says that the green stone is sealed, and warns that if they don't act, others will come after her. Meanwhile, in the forest on the same night, Kusano also drifts into her own dream. She recalls the time she played outside until Takami called her back to the lab. On the way, Kusano talks about her discovery of Ashikabi, but suddenly a Sekirei named Yomi appears and easily defeats Takami. Yomi's Ashikabi then tries to take Kusano, and in her panic, Kusano nearly tears her own face. Her intense fear creates the forest that now becomes her prison, the forest where she is trapped. The next morning, Minato wakes up and starts thinking about the strange dream from the previous night. Musubi wakes up too and casually begins folding the bedding while enjoying the bright morning. However, their peaceful silence is broken by the sound of a sharp slash. Curious, Minato and Musubi rush to the balcony and see Mia cutting leaves with her sword like some prehistoric samurai. Mesmerized by Mia's skill, Musubi doesn't hesitate to leap from the balcony as her natural assets seem to defy gravity, and seconds later, she lands gracefully. Without a moment's hesitation, she immediately challenges Mia to a fight. Worried about Musubi's safety, Minato runs downstairs and arrives just in time to see Mia effortlessly dodging Musubi's first punch. Uzume, also drawn by the noise, comes outside. When she tries to stop the fight, Mia simply tells her to keep quiet and watch, while she teaches Musubi a lesson. Uzume uses the moment to approach Minato and gently whispers that she's ready for some physical training if Minato wants. But he can only stand there, stunned at how easily Uzume approaches and flirts so openly. Suddenly, Minato realizes he's already late for work. After a long, hard day at the construction site, Minato finally sits on a bench and opens the bento box Mia had prepared for him. Seeing the food, Minato can't hold back his tears, and next to him, a co-worker named Seo stares while drooling like a dog at the sight of food. Feeling sorry for the chap, Minato offers him a rice ball, which leads them to introduce themselves and talk about how tough life is, especially with the struggling economy. And in the middle of their conversation, the lightning twins suddenly appear. Without hesitation, Hikari runs up and delivers a solid kick to Seo's face, then apologizes to Minato for Seo's slightly rude behavior. They suddenly recognize each other, and Minato, taken aback, drops his lunchbox. As an apology for spoiling his food, Hikari offers him a piece of bread. However, Seo suddenly grabs both of the Thunder Twins. As it turns out, he's their Ashikabi. In an instant, they are shocked by electricity because of Seo's overly aggressive grip on both of them. Shortly after, Homura receives a call from Takami, through which he learns that an Ashikabi will be hunting Kusano in the park that night, trying to claim her after a broadcast message is sent out. That evening, Minato tries to talk to Seo, asking if he also saw the message about Kusano. Just then, they see an MBI cargo helicopter fly overhead, and their boss immediately orders everyone to go home, as an evacuation warning is announced. A few moments later, Seo tells Minato to go to the park with him. Minato realizes the evacuation warning is just a tactic to give them a chance to capture Kusano. Meanwhile, at Maya's place, Musubi finds Matsu's cell in the house, and immediately informs Mia before heading out. Elsewhere, the Lightning Twins blow up an MBI tank outside the park. Minato starts doubting their intentions, but it's too late to chicken out, so they continue entering the park together. Inside, Minato sees a projection of Kusano giving them directions, so he quickly informs Seo, and the two decide to go save her. At the park entrance, Homura appears but turns away when he hears the voice of Yomi, a Sekirei from Kusano's past. Homura prepares to fight, but Yomi calls on Aitsu, a beautiful homeless woman from the park, who uses her eye powers to attack Homura. After Yomi leaves, Homura notices the Sekirei mark on Aitsu's forehead and wonders if she is the cursed number. At that moment, Homura hears someone calling his name, and he soon realizes that it's Musubi. She apologizes for her mistakes and wishes him luck before jumping into the park. While walking with Minato, Seo asks if he knows how a Sekirei gets their wings. Seo explains that some Ashikabi force Sekirei to become theirs by exchanging mouth fluids without consent. He wants to help Minato because he feels Minato's connection with Kusano is fate. Elsewhere inside the cave, Yomi tries to pull Kusano out, but Minato senses something is wrong. With all his strength, he runs into the cave and tries to rescue Kusano. When the latter refuses to leave, Yomi prepares to attack her, but Minato arrives just in time and stops her in an unexpected way, by grabbing her cushions. However, the Lightning Twins arrive and shock them with a current of 1,000,000 volts. As Yomi begins mocking Seo, Hikari responds with tears in her eyes. Amid the chaos, Minato finally manages to reunite with Kusano before she faints in his arms. Unfortunately, Yomi escapes from Seo and demands Minato hand Kusano over. Seo, on the other hand, stops the twins from interfering, claiming it's not their fight. When Yomi swings her Grim Reaper staff with the intent to attack, Musubi suddenly arrives and breaks it in two. Before anyone can react, a frustrated Yomi retaliates with an energy blast that knocks Musubi down. In the midst of the fight, Musubi manages to land several solid punches on Yomi, but the attack isn't enough to protect her from Yomi's energy slash. It tears some of her clothes, exposing Musubi's massive plots as well. Meanwhile, Seo can only watch in silence at the scene because he has never seen anything like that. Yomi, with a confused look, can't believe how a coward like Minato could be paired with such a strong Sakure. Amid the tension, Yomi rips the remaining clothing off Musubi and aims for her exposed body. Thankfully, Minato steps in and distracts Yomi, giving his Sakure plenty of time to recuperate. However, as the dust settles, Musubi jumps forward, protecting Minato and attacking Yomi using the techniques she learned from Maya. Minato is able to dodge Yomi's earlier attacks and manages to tear her clothes. Musubi then uses the Norito prayer to absorb Yomi's wings while simultaneously erasing her Sakure mark in the process. Elsewhere, Aitsu senses Yomi's absence and quickly leaves her fight with Homura to search for her. Later, Minato returns home with Kusano and tells Miya that she's a relative's child. A little while later, they sit on the porch, talking about the first time Minato saw Kusano before she fell into a tree. While he strokes her head and thanks her for saving him, Minato asks Kusano to be his ashikabi. They then exchange mouth fluids and Kusano gets her wings. One night in the park, someone comes looking for Kusano and turns the entire area into a barren desert. Meanwhile, outside the boarding house that same evening, Kagari gets into a limousine with Takami, who wants to talk about Kusano. When Takami tries to tell him something important about Minato, she ends up showing him a photo instead. In it is a young Minato standing beside his sister and their mother, who happens to be none other than Takami. The next day, Minato prepares for the day ahead, still unaware of the full scope of what's happening. Kusano too doesn't realize the gravity of the situation. While Minato continues his preparations, a breaking news report airs about the mysterious incident in the park the previous night. Even though Minato doesn't exactly feel obligated to solve all of Kusano's problems like he is her mother, he begins to understand what's really going on with Kusano. Thus, out of empathy, he decides to check on her. At that moment, Kusano feels the death of the plant she had nurtured with such care. Overwhelmed, she breaks down in Minato's arms and starts sobbing. During that emotional moment, she mentions someone named Yomi, someone who had been able to resist her powers. Moved by her vulnerability, Minato blurts out a filmy line saying that he'll always be there for her whenever she needs him. That small act of kindness lifts Kusano's spirits just a little. When Minato returns to work, he learns that Seo has suddenly quit. It turns out Seo had chosen to handle something more urgent and personal. Back at the boarding house terrace, Kusano sits beside Uzume, nervously waving while watching Musubi train with Miya. Kusano looks worried, while Uzume simply observes, calm and collected like she is some old martial arts sensei. After work, when Minato enters the house, he is surprised to see Seo already there. It turns out Seo used to be an old friend of Maya's late husband, and still drops by the boarding house like a freeloader when he runs out of food. While chatting casually, Seo tells Minato how he figured out his identity from the taste of the bento box he brought on his first day of work. Just then, Miya and Minato prepare to welcome the twins who've come there looking for someone. Seo, on the other hand, steps out, casually carrying a bag of leftover food to discard. Following that tense encounter, Minato is nearly beaten by the twins, but Seo steps in just in time to stop them. He thanks Minato for helping Kusano, but with a sarcastic smirk, also tells him he doubts Minato has the courage to truly protect the girls. Before leaving, Seo hands Minato his card and tells him to reach out if he ever needs help again before disappearing with the twins. Later, Musubi relaxes in the bath with Uzume, but before they finish, Musubi notices a Sakure crest on Uzume and asks who her ashikabi is. The latter replies that it's a secret, adding that some circumstances are keeping them apart. That night, Kusano suddenly wakes from a nightmare and walks over to Yume's room. There, in the mirror, she sees a creepy figure with unusually large assets and panics. Terrified, she runs into Minato's room and ends up sleeping there, feeling safer beside him. The next morning, during breakfast, Kusano nervously shares her story of the ghost she saw. Minato and Musubi search the entire house but find nothing. When Kusano starts describing the figure's features, Uzumi appears to recognize them, but before she can speak, Miya interrupts. Later, Miya visits her husband's grave, leaving the girls in charge of lunch. Uzume leads everyone to her room to gather ingredients. Uzume tells them to call her when the food is ready, and the girls hurry to the kitchen to begin cooking their massive meal. Eventually, they serve a ridiculous amount of food, and an overwhelmed Minato eats like he had grown in a war zone. Meanwhile, a mysterious stalker lurks nearby, secretly admiring Minato's physique. Later that day, Miya gets off at the train station and begins her walk home. Coincidentally, Yukari arrives at the same station, using a map to find her way to the boarding house. But as she is walking, someone bumps into her, and when Yukari looks closely, she sees a girl with fragile features and a pale face that makes her heart race. As Yukari checks on her, a Sakure suddenly appears on a nearby rooftop and orders her to stop. He wants to take the girl back to her master, but Yukari refuses. Angered, the Sakure draws a whip to strike her, and Yukari says she likes the whip and is not intimidated by it. Just in time, Yukari pushes her away and starts shouting. Then, unexpectedly, the Sakure feels a surge of intense heat rising inside her. There's no time to process it as Yukari runs from the dangerous Sakure. That evening, back at the boarding house, Musubi is cleaning when she sees someone pass by. Shortly after, she visits Minato's room and tells him that Kusano is now sleeping in Uzume's room. Then, he recalls the incident in the park involving Yomi and asks Musubi to explain everything. Musubi reveals that they were caught in a massive battle where Sekirei fought one another, and the loser would be permanently separated from their ashikabi. The thought makes Minato weak in the knees as he likes having 5 different wiafus. With fierce determination, Musubi pushes him to the ground and promises she'll become the strongest Sekirei so they'll never be separated. While they are talking, Musubi hears Mia's voice and rushes to meet her. But the stalker, now revealed to be another Sekirei, begins to lose her mind. A few hours later, after Mia sends Musubi to buy groceries, the stalker decides that Musubi has now become her enemy. While the latter is out shopping, the stalker hacks into the MBI satellite system and launches a rain of lasers directly at her. That night, back at the boarding house, Mia prepares a bath for Minato and invites Kusano to join. After soaking for a while, Minato starts washing himself when he hears the door open. Thinking it's just Musubi returning, he relaxes until something unfamiliar touches his back. Panic surges through him as he wonders if a dude instead of one of his waifus has entered the room. As he tries to crawl away in terror, the figure behind him suddenly reveals a large milk jug, nearly sending Minato's brain into overdrive. In the meantime, at the market, Musubi swiftly dodges several laser beams that had been aimed at her. Back at the boarding house, Minato is curious and asks the stranger her name. The woman with the milk jug smiles and confidently replies that her name is Matsu. After a while, Musubi returns home, wearing clothes that make her look like she came straight out of a war zone. However, Mia blocks her and warns that she should immediately take a bath before entering the house with such dirt on her. Meanwhile, Matsu is trying to make Minato her simp, but this awkward and chaotic moment is suddenly interrupted by Musubi, who arrives and catches the two in action. Matsu, clearly annoyed by the interruption, complains that she had prepared herself earlier in anticipation of Musubi's arrival. Then, without warning, she pulls a mini bazooka from her mouth and fires a military-grade net at Musubi, tying her up completely. With Musubi restrained, Matsu tries to continue her plan with Minato, but he is already visibly traumatized. But before she can go any further, Mia reappears, holding a knife to Matsu's neck, and the tension in the room spikes instantly. Mia sternly tells Matsu to stop whatever she's planning, and after the confrontation, Matsu apologizes. Mia explains that Matsu is also a tenant at the boarding house. Matsu then shares her secret. Her room is hidden behind a false wall, and she is currently a fugitive being hunted by MBI. Mia recalls that her late husband had once worked for MBI, which is how she met Matsu in the first place. Initially, she had considered evicting her, but after Matsu begged to stay, Mia changed her mind. That night, an extremely well-endowed Sekirei named Akatsu stands on the rooftop, facing Hamura. She is soon joined by a cowgirl-style Sekirei who wraps her whip around Hamura and tells Akatsu to put him on ice. Hamura, however, responds by burning the whip down to a crisp. Meanwhile, at Yukari's house, she watches Shina closely and, to her own surprise, she begins thinking of 70 different plot positions. When Shina asks Yukari to become his ashikabi and leans in for a kiss, the latter freezes in sheer terror. Back in the city, Hamura collapses in an alley due to his unstable powers. After removing his mask, he tries to call for help, but his phone melts in his hand. He accepts his fate, lying there helpless until a Sekirei named Tsukiyumi, who is a hardcore ashikabi hater, suddenly drenches him with water. She tells him to get a grip, but Hamura, still concerned, suggests she wear longer clothing and asks why she hasn't found an ashikabi yet. Tsukiyumi admits that she doesn't like being touched without reason. However, she now begins to feel the presence of her destined partner, and her mission becomes clear. She must find that person and become a proper Sekirei. At the boarding house, Minato reflects on Matsu's strange behavior when she suddenly reappears, determined to complete their partnership ritual. She tells him to prepare his gizi, but before they can proceed, Maya interrupts and cancels their planned breakfast as punishment. At the top of the MBI tower, Takami informs one of her colleagues that nearly all Sekirei have been winged. The project is nearing its climax, and the battle royale is about to begin. The next morning, Minato wakes up to the soothing scent of melon and rice cakes beside him. For a moment, he feels like he's in heaven, but Matsu soon stirs and attempts to blast him with her version of fresh morning breath. Chaos ensues when she accidentally kisses Musubi, who had been sleepy nearby, on the lips, sending Minato into panic. During breakfast, Minato realizes that Uzume is nowhere to be found, and Kagari, covered in bandages from a work accident, is unable to feed himself. Later, while Musubi trains with Mia, Minato naps in the room with Kusano. In his sleep, Minato has a disturbing dream. Tsukiyumi threatens to end his life. He nearly wakes up in a cold sweat, but when he finally regains consciousness, he finds a message from Yukari which says she won't be able to visit for a while. Concerned, Minato decides to speak with Matsu about the dream and goes to her lair where she listens carefully. As he describes what happened, she begins analyzing the dream and explains that the Sekirei project is rapidly approaching its final phase. Nearly all Sekirei have been winged, meaning the battle royale is close at hand. And eventually, only one Sekirei will remain standing, like it is some gladiator fight, but for nerds. Matsu is excited about the prize awaiting the last one standing. Minato, on the other hand, is worried, and Matsu tries to calm him down. She asks for more dream details so she can pull data on this Sekirei named Tsukiyumi. Based on the information, Matsu concludes that Tsukuyomi is a dangerously skilled Sekirei, a type with a sharp edge who could take down dominant alphas with ease. Still, with more Sekirei now allied with Minato, their odds of survival are better. He just needs to avoid getting himself neutered, as Matsu jokingly puts it. Musubi then returns, bruised but smiling after her training session. She gives Minato a motivational speech which lifts his confidence, and he decides he's ready to find Tsukuyomi. Meitsu and the others offer their support to make sure he doesn't end up on the wrong end of her temper. Later, Minato walks through the city with Kasano, who's been assigned to watch over him. In an alley, a cat leaps from a rooftop, and Kasano saves it effortlessly with her plant powers. On another rooftop, Tsukuyomi is simmering with frustration. She's ready to find the one she senses, her destined Ashikabi, and cut him down to size. Suddenly, the Thunder Twins arrive, targeting the unwinged Tsukuyomi. But the latter challenges them directly, blocks their attacks with ease, and retaliates by blasting them off the roof. Ironically, the cat Kasano saved turns out to be one that Seo has been searching for. And as they walk, Seo suddenly pauses. He can smell the scent of grilled fish lingering on Minato, and he accurately guesses that Meitsu has bonded with him. However, as they continue to talk, Seo reveals something shocking. He says that Mia's late husband was Tsukuyomi's best friend. Just then, the Thunder Twins crash down from the sky, and not long after, Tsukuyomi falls as well, colliding straight into Minato. She tries to scold him, but as she looks at him, something strange happens, and her aura falters while she becomes immobilized. Tsukuyomi realizes it at that moment. Minato is the one she's been sensing all along. Summoning all her strength, she stands and prepares to say what she believes are her final words before putting him down. And before Minato can say anything, he is struck by water and slammed into a nearby wall. Still dazed, he tries to reason with her, but Tsukuyomi tells him to stay away, warning that she might unleash her aggressive power again. Before she can make another move, Kasano steps forward and protects Minato. Her vines creep outward, ready to restrain Tsukuyomi if she tries anything more. While Minato tells Kasano to stop fighting, Tsukuyomi suddenly realizes that he has already built a fat harem. That realization is the last thing Tsukuyomi needs, and she slams Minato against the wall once again. Using Kasano's vines to gain height, Tsukuyomi hovers above him and asks for his final words. She says that she has only used 1% of her power, and asks what a weakling like him wants from her. Minato declares that he wants her to become his Sekirei, but she scoffs at the idea. After Tsukuyomi gathers power, the blast from her strike ends up obliterating the building behind her. But she misses, having misfired at the last second. On the other hand, Minato declares that he won't stop until Tsukuyomi listens to him. As he begins walking toward her, Tsukuyomi prepares to launch another attack, but right then, the Thunder Twins suddenly step in. They tell her to pick on someone her own size, and then ask Seo to activate their trump card. As Minato covers Kasano's eyes, anticipating something intense, Seo begins a ritual exchange of fluids with the twins, activating their Sekirei wings. The raw power of their bond leaves Tsukuyomi too stunned to speak. Now, fused with united energy, the twins launch their attack, but Minato leaps in at the last second to save Tsukuyomi from taking the full hit. Back at the boarding house, Matsu's radar detects the energy signature from the twins' strike. She quickly contacts Musubi 9, sends her racing toward Minato's O. Musubi's timely intervention ends up saving Tsukuyomi, as the lightning blast creates a crater far larger than they had intended. After Minato gets back up, the Thunder Twins begin reciting a second prayer. However, Tsukuyomi recovers quickly and takes Seo down with a swift strike to halt the ceremony. With a hiss of energy, Seo slides down the side of the building and grabs Tsukuyomi's arm, pinning her against a vine. Tsukuyomi struggles but can't counter Seo's aura signal. She glares at Seo and reminds her, with unshaken pride, that she's built differently. Minato grows concerned, thinking Seo might try to take Tsukuyomi away as punishment for what just happened. SEO, on the other hand, starts to consider making Tsukuyomi his personal servant through another bonding ritual, but hearing this seems to shake Tsukuyomi, and she begins to realize perhaps Minato isn't so bad after all. Just as Tsukuyomi prepares to resume her plan, Minato tells her to stop. He says with unusual conviction that she belongs to him alone. As soon as Seo lets Tsukuyomi go, he's immediately zapped by his girls, who angrily remind him of his promise to exercise with them equally. Seo tries to explain himself, but the second shock shuts him up. While the twins reprimand their Ashikabi, Tsukuyomi jumps down to confront Minato. She asks if he was serious about what he just said. When Minato pretends not to know what she means, she threatens to freeze his private parts. Tsukuyomi explains that she knows they're destined for each other as she saw it clearly in a dream. Minato, realizing she's not joking, finally agrees to become her Ashikaibi. However, she warns him, if he ever sticks his nose into another woman's bread bun, she'll roast him alive. They seal the deal with a ceremonial kiss that ignites her body with heat, and her wings spread. Back at the boarding house, Maya starts worrying about all the chaos. Kagero tells her to stop acting like everyone's mom, then quickly apologizes before she can scold him. Just then, Minato returns with his girls, and Tsukuyomi immediately demands to know if Mia is one of his Sekirei too. Mia, unfazed, asks who she is, and Tsukuyomi proudly announces herself as Minato's wife, which prompts immediate protests from Kasano and Musubi. They both try to claim waifu status, and tensions erupt during a brief sparring match. Meanwhile, atop the MBI tower, Takami makes a call, confirming that everything is in place, and now they wait for the perfect moment to begin. After the call, Takami starts reflecting on how all of this began. She remembers an unknown island at the end of the 20th century, where her husband and MBI's chief Hiroto, dressed like a superhero, was rambling on about what he wanted to reveal to the world. Afterward, Hiroto and Takami climbed back up and eventually found an abandoned ship. Upon entering, Hiroto hoped to find a Kryptonian, but instead, they discovered a woman's body in a state of deep sleep. Back at the boarding house, Mia lays out a new arrangement. Musubi and Tsukumi will now be roommates. When they begin to argue, Mia's terrifying alter ego quickly reminds them who has the final say in the household. Meanwhile, Amatsu is in her room exploring the data hub when she notices something strange going on with MBI. On the other hand, Tsukiyumi sneaks out and passes by Homura, whom she's starting to suspect is actually a Sekirei. Elsewhere in the city, another Sekirei Karasuba, who has fallen for a rich man, heads to the boarding house. Surprised by the unexpected visit, Musubi takes Karasuba to a room to help her change clothes, which had been mistakenly soaked. Right then, they are joined by Minato, and Karasuba asks if Minato is the weak harem master she's heard so much about. After they discuss random things for a while, Karasuba reveals that she came here only to discuss their pinky promise. A little later, Karasuba says goodbye to Musubi and notices Homura watching her from the roof as she leaves. Back inside, Matsu's computer screen starts glitching, so she quickly opens the door and tells everyone to turn on the news. Elsewhere, Professor Hiroto is broadcasting to the citizens of Teito, announcing that he has finally taken control of the entire capital. As everyone steps outside to listen, Tsukumi informs some fleeing residents that all city exits will now be controlled by MBI inspections. After Tsukumi leaves, Matsu gathers the others in her room and explains that the capital is going to become Ground Zero. Every exit monitored because the Sekirei Battle Royale is about to begin. A little later, Karasuba is seen inside her friend and another Sekirei, Natsuo's Ferrari, casually chatting as he drives her home. Suddenly, they spot two Sekirei, Akitsu and Mitsuha, walking down the street. When they encounter Karasuba in an alley, she immediately challenges them. Akitsu tells Mitsuha to run, but the latter is as confident as the character that dies first in a horror movie, as she thinks she can hold Karasuba off. Mitsuha attacks with her whip, but within seconds, the veins on her back rupture from the strain. Karasuba calmly turns to Akitsu, who chooses not to fight and instead flees. Back at the boarding house, Minato is lost in thought about all the sudden events when Musubi comes to talk about her promise with Karasuba. Months before they met Minato, Musubi and Karasuba had come up with a grim plan to treat humans like expendables. But when Musubi said she didn't believe humans were that bad, Karasuba challenged her to survive the Battle Royale so they could settle it in one final fight that would decide humanity's fate. After revealing this plan to Minato, Musubi places his hand on her chest and vows to win the battle. Elsewhere, two Ashikabi are locked in a fierce battle. One of them, Natsuo, manages to hold her own but becomes too slow and gets caught in her opponent's toilet paper technique, leading to 1,000 paper cuts and ultimately her defeat. The victor uses his Sekirei's prayer to absorb Natsuo's wings, crushing her hopes of ever receiving applause from her Ashikabi again. The next day, traffic on the bridge out of the city grinds to a halt. People are stuck in a massive jam, trying to get past MBI military personnel. A Sekirei named Kuno, who is stuck in the jam, pleads with her Ashikabi, Haruka, to reconsider and go back. But Haruka has other plans, and without hesitation, he jumps straight ahead as soldiers chase after them. That night, Minato and Kusano head to Matsu's room to convince her to come out. Matsu is deeply absorbed in her system, and when Minato asks why she's displaying MBI's secret database, she explains she's using it to track Sekirei activity and stay ahead in the competition. But something else grabs her attention. Data about the loss of the knife thrower. Strangely, there's no record of the Sekirei who defeated him. This is a major red flag, and according to the rules, Sekirei are supposed to monitor the ones they defeat until company personnel arrive to collect the data. Even stranger, the so-called toilet paper assassin didn't even log the victory into the system. A little while later, Musubi goes to check on Uzume, but she's not in her room. It turns out Uzume is at the hospital visiting someone named Chiho. Shortly afterwards, Chiho wakes up and thanks Uzume for being there. Uzume apologizes, feeling useless even though Chiho is her Ashikabi. Still, she's just happy to see her alive. Later that evening, in Matsu's room, the girls gather for the harem meeting. Minato tells them about the strange case of the Sekirei Eliminator and warns everyone to be cautious. The girls, already high on adrenaline, get fired up at the idea of fighting anyone who abuses Sekirei battle customs. That night, Minato is relaxing in his room when he's startled by Musubi standing silently at the door, nearly giving him a heart attack. She says she just wants to escort him to the dining room, but as she walks behind him, Minato can't shake off a strange feeling. Matsu watches them and senses something dark in Musubi's usually cheerful expression. Elsewhere, Hayato and Mutsu are talking, and Hayato decides to shift focus, to find a way to get Shina away from Yukari. At Yukari's place, she's awkwardly making dinner and still feels uncomfortable with doing some chiggy-wiggy with Shina. To change the mood, she asks about the person Shina is looking for. He tells her it's Kusano, who is his long-lost sister. Yukari then shares some childhood memories about Minato and eventually decides to help Shina find her. Up on the rooftop, Akitsu is silently watching them. The next day, Uzumi leaves Chiho's hospital room when she's approached by a man in a suit. He praises her for her swift combat ability, instant clapping, as he calls it, and hands her a photo of Kuno, her next target. He reminds her that Chiho's condition is worsening and time is running out. Back at the boarding house, Musubi and Tsukumi are on the rooftop, gearing up to hunt down Sekirei, who are breaking the rules. Minato tries to convince them to drop the idea, but before he can stop them, Tsukumi attacks Musubi. The clash is brief but intense, and Musubi nearly smashes her face but recovers in time. Tsukumi, impressed by Musubi's strength, decides she's ready to face her properly in battle one day. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Haruka is still running with Kuno until she trips on the sidewalk. As Haruka checks on her, the toilet paper Sekirei, now revealed to be Uzume, catches up with them and demands they leave. Haruka insists that the Sekirei standing in front of him is too Sigma to do something so cold, but Uzume is determined to carry out her orders. As the fight is about to escalate, Kuno lets out a powerful, siren-like scream that shakes the entire city. Musubi and Tsukiyomi hear it and immediately rush to the scene. Haruka is using his connection to amplify Kuno's sonic scream. When the toilet paper Sekirei rises again and resumes the attack, a wall of water suddenly surges in. As Tsukiyomi and Musubi have entered the real battle. Uzume, still disguised, hesitates as she's confused and conflicted, clearly not ready to fight her friends. On the other hand, Haruka sees the opening and tries to get Kuno to her feet. Suddenly, he turns around, only to be stopped in his tracks by a vision of his ex-girlfriend. Uzume, who has now regained her focus, blocks Tsukiyomi's first attack. Musubi is thrilled to see how strong Uzume is, just as Tsukiyomi prepares for a second attack. Right then, a Sekirei named Kazehana, in a very short purple Chinese dress and casually carrying two big tankers, suddenly approaches Uzume. Tsukiyomi is taken aback by the new entry and halts her assault when Kazehana steps between them. Kazehana tells Tsukiyomi to stop picking unfair fights, reminding her that she had already ganged up on Uzume with Musubi once. She then instructs Musubi to face Kuno instead, so everyone can fight fair and square. When Musubi introduces herself to Kuno and requests a duel, Kuno catches a glimpse of Musubi's very large assets and tells Haruka that she stands no chance. As Haruka starts explaining their philosophy on avoiding battles, Tsukiyomi once again tries to defeat Uzume. Kazehana jumps in and interrupts the match again, prompting Tsukiyomi to yell at her to take her junk and Uzume and get lost. Revealing that she's also a Sekirei, Kazehana activates her power and disappears along with Uzume. Tsukiyomi then realizes Musubi has also vanished. A little while later on a rooftop, Kazehana asks Uzume about Minato, but the latter responds by challenging her to a fight. Back at the boarding house, Minato is managing the chores when suddenly Musubi falls from the sky and lands on his head. The smell of her sweat from the earlier fight nearly knocks him out. Musubi picks him up like a sack and drags him away like an inflatable boat, saying she wants him to meet someone. She takes him to her old hideout where she's sheltering Haruka and Kuno. After introducing them, Musubi explains her plan to help them escape the Sekirei plan and asks for Minato's help. At his old apartment, Minato starts to realize he and Haruka are a lot alike, as both of them have failed to get into college. The only difference, he jokes, is that Musubi is way thicker than a stepmom, while Kuno looks like she's going through withdrawal. Haruka explains everything to Minato in detail, including how Kuno's paralysis is her biggest weakness, making her unable to survive in the Sekirei plan. That's why they want to escape the city altogether. When Minato suggests trying to cross the border, Haruka mocks him, asking if he's ever heard of the MBI helicopters patrolling the skies. Later that night, Minato returns home with Musubi. At the door, Tsukiyomi and Kuno are waiting, ready to interrogate him. They ask if he did anything indecent with Musubi while they were gone. Minato replies that he just managed to stick the anterior end, causing Tsukiyomi to slam her head repeatedly against the floor in frustration. Sometime later, Uzume and Kazehana stumble drunkenly into the boarding house, somehow ending up in Minato's room. The next morning, the rest of the girls rush in after hearing Minato's screams, and Tsukiyomi splashes water on the two drunks to wake them up. As they finally get things under control, a loudspeaker outside interrupts the peace. Kazehana looks at Minato like he's her long-lost love, and tries to seduce him. Before she can really let loose, Mia arrives and tells Kazehana to go find some clothes. Later, everyone sits down for breakfast, and Minato tells the group about Haruka's plan to escape with Kuno. Sometime afterwards, he goes to Matsu's room to ask if there's any way to help. Matsu pulls out a photo of the island where Hato and Takami first discovered the Sekirei on an abandoned ship. She explains that a small part of the tech from that ship helped MBI rise to power, and that the Sekirei project became the company's central focus. In a flashback, Kuno laments that her hands and feet are frozen from the cold, and that she has not yet found her Ashikabi. As she speaks, several Sekirei approach her with hostile intentions, urging her to surrender so they can defeat her without further harm. Kuno narrowly escapes their attack and finds a place to sit, where she begins to cry because she feels like a 40-year-old who has never even kissed. She expresses despair, believing she cannot fight any Sekirei and feels utterly useless. Soon, Haruka approaches her, and noticing her distress, offers her some warm food to cheer her up. Kuno accepts the food, and as Haruka prepares to leave, she grabs his muffler. She is overcome with a warm feeling and declares that she has found her Ashikabi. Back in the present, Kazehana is listening to their story and expresses delight at the blossoming of their small love story. On the other hand, Haruka questions Minato about why he brought Kuno along. Minato explains that Kuno is like a leech that doesn't leave you once stuck, and thus he has decided to join them. Sayo, understanding their desire to flee the city of Teto, expresses disapproval of MBI's recent actions and agrees to help them. He jokingly asks when they will pay him for his assistance. Haruka, surprised, questions if Sayo expects payment, to which Sayo channels his inner Donald Trump and responds that nothing comes for free. Upon hearing this, Minato calls Miya, then hands the phone to Sayo, who receives a scolding from her. A curious Musubi asks Minato whom he called, and Minato confirms it was Miya, assuring her that Maya will handle the situation. Once the call is over, a frustrated Sayo grabs Minato and accuses him of playing dirty tricks by involving Miya. A little later on, Tsukiyumi questions Matsu about Minato's intentions when he is not around. Nearby, Minato is deep in his thoughts and says out loud that if there is even a sliver of hope that Haruka and Kuno can stay together forever, he will help them achieve that goal. Matsu, hearing this, agrees to assist Minato if he is determined to help them. In the meantime, the bloodthirsty Tsukiyumi expresses disbelief that they are aiding people who cannot fight, while Matsu explains that Minato made this decision fully aware of the dangers. Tsukiyumi notes that Matsu seems uninterested in the plan, to which Matsu responds that a Sekurei's duty is to support their Ashikabi. Tsukiyumi counters that a Sekurei's primary duty is to fight, accusing Matsu of hiding like the weak. Frustrated, Tsukiyumi storms off. Later, Tsukiyumi sits alone, and Miya approaches her. Since Tsukiyumi has nothing but violence in her mind, she admits her confusion about why Matsu and Musubi are helping with the escape plan. Miya explains that helping those in need is a natural instinct, not just a Sekurei's obligation. Tsukiyumi argues that Sekurei are meant to fight each other, but Maya questions if Tsukiyumi does not feel happy knowing Kuno and Haruka might live happily with their Ashikabi. Tsukiyumi concedes that Miya may be right, though she admits to feeling jealous of Kuno, whom she considers weak as number 95. Miya asks if Tsukiyumi still wants to become stronger, and Tsukiyumi reveals that while she once sought strength without an Ashikabi, she now wants to grow stronger for Minato to spend her life with him. She pleads with Miya not to tell Minato, and Miya agrees, suggesting that she train Tsukiyumi to test her strength. Seo outlines the escape routes from Teto, explaining that they have options on all sides of the Teto Tower. He notes that all areas except north are controlled by 3 Sekurei, one of whom Minato has already encountered. It was Yomi, number 43, who was defeated by Minato, whose Ashikabi, Miko, controls the south. The west is managed by Kishi, about whom Seo knows little, while the east is under a figure opposed to the Sekurei project, likely to cause trouble later. The scene shifts to Uzume, whose Ashikabi asks what is wrong. Uzume claims she is simply thirsty and leaves to get a drink. Soon, a mysterious man approaches her, accusing her of losing her target. Uzume explains that others got in her way, but the man warns her that she has only one more chance, as her Ashikabi's life is in the hands of their leader, Higasama. Meanwhile, Seo advises the group to avoid these controlled areas, but Minato questions why North, despite its powerful Ashikabi, is controlled by someone else. Seo reveals that a terrifying figure resides there, and he advises them to avoid provoking this ultra-Chad-level villain. He explains that escaping via the north is ideal, as crossing the Orangava River, which connects Teto to the outside, will keep MBI from pursuing them. Haruka asks if they must swim across, but Seo clarifies they will use a bridge, though it has checkpoints. 2 problems remain: MBI's satellites, which could eliminate them with lasers, and the Discipline Unit, consisting of the dangerous black, red, and blue Sekurei. Minato suggests Matsu hack the satellites, and Haruka praises Minato's capable Sekurei. Musubi volunteers to fight the Discipline Unit if necessary. SEO finalizes the plan for the following night, urging haste. Kuno, overcome with guilt, apologies for causing trouble, but Haruka reassures her that she is his, and he will do whatever it takes to protect her. Kazehana, moved by their love, expresses happiness, while Seo grumbles about helping for free but urges them to escape safely and defy MBI. The group gathers with Matsu, who confirms she received Seo's email detailing the plan. Minato asks if she can execute it, and Matsu assures him she can channel her inner movie hacker by jamming the satellites, but only for 1 hour, giving them a narrow window to escape. Right then, Kazehana arrives, declaring it time to party, and the group becomes distracted with festivities. Minato admits to feeling nervous, and Haruka suggests he join them in escaping, pointing out the difficulty of the Sekurei game. Minato then excuses himself to speak with Tsukiyumi outside. He invites her to join the party, explaining that Kazehana organized it for Haruka and Kuno's escape. Noticing Tsukiyumi's injury, he expresses concern, but she dismisses it as minor. Tsukiyumi asks if Minato has ever felt love for her since their bond, hinting at her feelings. As they share a romantic moment, Matsu interrupts, startling Minato and leaving their conversation unfinished. Tsukiyumi, flustered, warns Matsu not to reveal what she said, threatening her playfully. Miya, stepping outside, notices someone in the bathroom and remarks that it is not fully ready. Tsukiyumi, who is inside, insists on bathing and states that the water's temperature suits her need to cool down. The next morning, Katagiri speaks with Miya, noting that everyone enjoyed the previous night. Maya suggests Katagiri should have joined, but he explains he was busy with club matters. Miya observes that Katagiri seems changed, to which he admits that he hasn't got enough time to play with his own small brother for a while. Inside, Kusano approaches Tsukiyumi, asserting that she is not Minato's wife. Tsukiyumi questions what the little girl means by that, and Kusano insists that if Tsukiyumi cannot help Minato, as she is not his wife. As night falls, the group prepares to execute the escape plan. Minato, reflecting silently, doubts Tsukiyumi will join them. On the other hand, Haruka asks if Minato really wants to help them, and Minato confirms that he does, and he is determined to see the plan through. Later on, a blue Sekirei named Haihane, who is a part of the MBI's disciplinary unit, informs Karasuba that many Sekirei and their Ashikabi are attempting to escape from the north area, where Red is also present. Karasuba remarks that it must feel frustrating for Haihane that Red is enjoying herself alone there. Haihane responds that she is heading to the north area herself, and Karasuba encourages her to go. During this exchange, Karasuba's Ashikabi asks if she was part of the discipline unit before becoming his Ashikabi. Karasuba confirms that she was, noting that, at the time, only she and Sekirei number 08, Yume, were in the unit. The Ashikabi inquires if she was stronger than other Sekirei, given her discipline unit role. Karasuba acknowledges that she was indeed powerful. Upon hearing this, the Ashikabi comments that it is shameful she died, to which Karasuba agrees, and even adds one more unnecessarily darker point, saying that she had wanted to defeat her personally. The scene shifts to Kazehana, who remarks that the pleasant breeze makes it a perfect night for the romantic couple attempting to escape. Homura, observing as a Sekirei's guardian, expresses his desire to see the situation through to the end. He asks Kazehana if she is truly not going to help, noting that she seemed excited about it the previous day. A psychotic Kazehana explains that if she helped, she would miss the opportunity to observe the chaos, silently thinking that she wants to see what the boy involved will show her. Meanwhile, Kusano approaches a group of soldiers. One soldier questions why a young girl is out so late and asks about her parents. Kusano replies that she does not know. Another soldier recognizes her from a checklist, identifying her as a Sekirei. Kusano uses her powers to restrain all the soldiers. From a distance, Minato watches and praises Kusano for her excellent work. Haruka, standing nearby, expresses concern that they are causing too much trouble and questions if their actions are justified. Minato insists that they have come too far to turn back and must keep moving forward. Haruka admires Minato's determination, calling him impressive. Elsewhere, Takami reports to Hiroto that just like any urgent equipment, the satellite system has gone down at the last minute. The latter suggests that the north area's checkpoint appears to be under a Sekirei's control. Upon hearing this, Takami accuses Hiroto of knowing this beforehand. The latter, identifying himself as a game master, admits that a player's move makes the game more exciting, and as a game master, he sees no reason not to enjoy it. Elsewhere, Matsu finds it strange that the soldiers are advancing quickly, and their numbers are increasing. She declares an emergency, urging everyone to evacuate. Minato asks where they should go, and Matsu suggests anywhere, possibly somewhere safe. On the other hand, a pathetic Sekirei accidentally damages Seo's cell phone with a shock, and apologizes for missing her target. Seo warns her to be careful, frustrated about his damaged phone. Minato tells Matsu that he is going to save Kusano. Matsu cautions him against recklessness, warning that if the discipline unit arrives, even an Ashikabi like him could be unalived without hesitation. Minato insists that he must go as he promised to protect Kusano. Matsu then announces a change in the plan, instructing Minato to proceed while she takes responsibility for rescuing Kusano. Matsu mounts her bike, determined to save Kusano, stating that she is willing to take risks to achieve their goal, and rides off. SEO, now safe, notes that the enemy is also sending weapon trucks. His Sekirei arrives and wonders if the others will be safe, given the heavy soldier presence. SEO replies that their fate now depends on dumb luck and also plot armor. Musubi asks Minato if Kusano will be okay, and Minato expresses confidence in Matsu's promise to save her. Meanwhile, Kusano is crying when Matsu arrives, takes her, and escapes. Matsu calls Minato to confirm that she has rescued Kusano. Minato expresses relief but warns Matsu that staying outside is dangerous for her. Matsu, however, insists that she has come too far to turn back and will not return home after leaving. In the meantime, Yukari, who is sleeping peacefully, wakes to a strange noise and wonders about the time. However, Shina looks out the window and identifies Kusano nearby. Yukari questions if Shina is certain it is Kusano, and Shina confirms with confidence. The two then rush out of the house to follow her. Back with Minato, Haruka remarks that once they cross a certain point, they will be free. However, they are interrupted by the red Sekirei, Benitsubasa, who questions where they think they are going, warning that escaping Tito will result in severe punishment. Minato recognizes her as part of the discipline unit. Haihan then introduces herself as number 104, and Benitsubasa as number 105, both from the same unit. Musubi, identifying her number as number 88, now declares that she will not lose to losers named after colors. A fight breaks out. Benitsubasa notes that Musubi is a combat-type Sekirei like herself, and mentions that Black had been keeping an eye on her. Musubi dismisses her words, calling her foolish, and vows to defeat her as the battle intensifies. Back at the inn, Tsukiyumi reflects on whether Minato feels the same emotions she does. Miya, who is nearby, reminds Tsukiyumi that she wanted to become the strongest Sekirei to live happily with Minato. Although their intentions differ, Tsukiyumi's feelings align with her desire to be Minato's wife, driving her to help him at any cost. During the fight, Musubi grabs Benitsubas's leg, declaring that she will not lose and throws her away. Benitsubasa returns quickly, accusing Musubi of faking weakness and vows to not just defeat but crush her like a pest. The battle escalates further, causing a bridge to collapse. Minato nearly falls but is caught by Benitsubasa, who stands on his hand and taunts him. Minato admits that his hand is slipping and he cannot swim. Benitsubasa uses her special attack on Musubi, leaving her in critical condition. Minato urges Musubi to escape, but Musubi insists that a Sekire's purpose is to meet their true Ashikabi. Tsukiyumi declares herself Minato's true wife and leaves. Miyashan, Haihane, Yume, and Haruka confront each other, with Yume noting that the Sekire symbol is fading from Musubi. Minato is shocked to see that Musubi's Sekire symbol has completely disappeared. With Musubi's Sekire symbol having vanished, Minato is left in tears like a teenager who has lost his favorite sock. Benitsubasa approaches him, stating that she had warned them to surrender, as resistance would lead to this outcome. She tells Minato that with his Sekire's symbol gone, further fighting is futile. Haruka urges caution, but Haihane dismisses his concern, asserting that he need not worry about her. Using her powers, Haihane strikes Haruka, rendering him unconscious. Kuno, approaching Haruka, expresses her deep love for him and kisses him, awakening her Sekire powers. As she sings, her voice resonates with a powerful effect. Haihane remarks that the song is draining her strength and causing overwhelming drowsiness, causing her to fall asleep on the spot. Benitsubasa, immobilized, questions why she cannot move. Kuno's power soon depletes and she collapses. She tells Haruka that she is not useless, to which Haruka responds that while she may feel inadequate, she is invaluable to him. Benitsubasa calls them foolish and with the body of adults but brain of children, confused by their bond. Minato explains that their actions demonstrate their willingness to risk everything to protect Haruka. Benitsubasa mocks Minato, calling him a weakling incapable of challenging them. At that moment, Tsukiyumi arrives, declaring that it is time to teach Benitsubasa a lesson. Minato, relieved, acknowledges her arrival. Benitsubasa and Haihane demand to know who she is. Tsukiyumi, recognizing Musubi, expresses surprise that Musubi, who always outperformed her in shopping races, has fallen behind in this situation. Benitsubasa, irritated, questions Tsukiyumi's interference and identity. Tsukiyumi introduces herself as number 08 Tsukiyumi and condemns them for harming her friend. A brief skirmish ensues, with Tsukiyumi holding her own against both opponents. Benitsubasa doubts that an Ashikabi like Minato could have such a formidable Sekire. Minato, still crying, laments his inability to help, believing he has only caused trouble for everyone. Benitsubasa approaches, suggesting that sparing him could make him a threat to Haihane in the future. As she prepares to attack, Tsukiyumi, who is observing from a distance, moves to save Minato, but Haihane intercepts her, declaring herself Tsukiyumi's true opponent. With Tsukiyumi distracted, Haihane gains the upper hand in their fight. Meanwhile, Yukari wonders what kind of a twisted person who has never felt his mother's love could be responsible for the chaos. Shina insists that Kusano could not have caused this alone. Matsu attempts to call Minato but fails to connect, concluding that something must have happened to the group. She urges everyone to head to their location immediately. Meanwhile, Kusano searches for Shina but is captured by an Ashikabi, who questions why such a beautiful girl is chasing someone else. Yukari angrily confronts the Ashikabi for touching Kusano. The Ashikabi named Mutsu attacks Yukari, and the latter questions whether Mutsu is joking or genuinely intends to eliminate her. Things quickly go bad for Yukari as the attacker continues the offensive. Just when things begin to look doomed, Shina enters the battle and saves her friend from the onslaught. She then asks Yukari to become her Ashikabi before planting a kiss on her lips. This awakens her Sekire powers and she uses them to drive away the opposing Ashikabi into a retreat. Back at the main conflict, Benitsubasa prepares to strike Minato, but everyone present is stunned when Musubi rises to her feet like she is the MC of a Marvel movie. She declares that she will stop anyone who stands in the way of those who love. Addressing Benitsubasa, she, revealed as Yume, number 08, reprimands the discipline unit for targeting the weak. As a senior member, Yume vows to teach Benitsubasa a lesson. Benitsubasa, confused, dismisses her words, and together with Haihane, they attack Yume. Yume, displaying immense strength, uses a powerful laser beam, slightly injuring both opponents. Matsu, arriving at the scene, comments on the impressiveness of Yume's attack. Haihane demands to know Yume's true identity. Yume introduces herself as the leader of the MBI plan and head of the discipline unit, the legendary Sekire number 08. Grabbing both Haihane and Benitsubasa, she criticizes their lack of love, and as discipline unit members, their need for further growth. She then throws them aside. Approaching Minato, Yume acknowledges his deep love for Musubi, stating that his devotion awakened her. Overwhelmed with affection, she embraces him tightly. Tsukiyumi, jealous, tells Yume not to take advantage of the situation, while Kusano demands that Yume stay away from Minato. At that moment, Karasuba appears, noting that Yume has finally awakened. Yume greets Karasuba warmly, acknowledging their long separation, and Karasuba expresses genuine happiness at seeing her. Then, as if they weren't lovey-dovey 3 seconds ago, a fight begins between them, but Yume insists that they should not fight now, and promises to battle another day, and then leaves Musubi's body. Karasuba, realizing Yume has departed, prepares to attack Musubi, who recalls being defeated by a discipline unit member in the past. Seeing Musubi alive, Minato embraces her tightly. Tsukiyumi challenges Karasuba to continue fighting if she wishes, but Karasuba dismisses the need for concern and leaves. On the other hand, Matsu receives a message alerting her that MBI's satellites are operational again and warns everyone to stay vigilant. Haruka invites Minato to join them, but Minato declines, stating that he has something more important to do than be with losers who almost lost the war. Minato admits he is unsure of the specifics, but feels compelled to do something only he can achieve. Following this, Haruka and the others depart while Kazehana, observing from a distance, finds the events romantic. But she thinks to herself that Minato's actions, while impressive, are not enough to fully surprise her. Tsukumi confirms that Haruka and Kuno are safe and suggests returning home before MBI forces arrive. Minato apologizes, calling himself foolish for putting everyone in danger. Musubi reassures him that his presence inspired them to give their all. Tsukumi, Musubi, and Kusano playfully argue over who deserves Minato's affection first. They all embrace Minato, who urges them to hurry home to avoid MBI's forces. Comment down below, Harem King, if you finished the video. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.